Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Next Gen Planners podcast. My name is Dan, and I'm the head of community experience here at Next Gen Planners. And today, I am hugely excited to be joined all the way from Wales, I believe. I think he's in Wales today, anyways. By the looks of it, he is by Ray Adams from CashCalc and Niche IFA. How are you doing today, Ray?
I'm doing great, thanks. And I am in Wales, but I'm confused as to how you can say I look like I'm in Wales. Okay. So if you were looking out the window and it was raining, then yes, I'm in Wales.
Yeah, I just assumed that you are, given everything I know about you, but I didn't want to get it wrong.
Yes.
Yeah, welcome to the show, Ray. It's a pleasure to have you on. He doesn't often appear on podcasts, so we've caught a bit of a rare fish here today with Ray. So it should be a good chance to ask him some questions. I'm assuming that a lot of you guys in the audience will know who he is. But if you don't know who Ray is, he's the founder of CashCalc, which is a cash flow modeling tool for financial planners. A lot of you guys in the audience will likely be using CashCalc. And it's recently been acquired, of course, you might have seen in the news, by FE Fund Info as well. And of course, he is also founder of Niche IFA. So, Ray, without telling us your whole entire life story, can you tell us a little bit about how you got here and tell us a bit about the story of CashCalc and things like that?
Okay, great. Well, I'm a financial advisor, probably the same as most people listening here today. I'm a chartered financial planner and I'm a fellow. So at heart, I like giving advice to clients and helping them plan for their future. And in 2013, I got a little bit frustrated about giving clients illustrations with projection rates. I think at the time were 2, 5, and 8. And as I explained them to the client's eyes would glaze over. And I think, I've lost you already. They just weren't interested in tabulated outputs. And I decided to really make the conversation better. I had to use some sort of pretty colors, graphical output. And that was cash flow planning. Now, I'd already looked at what was on the market previously, but I thought I'm going to look much closer. And there were several incumbents on the market, and two stood out, which I really liked. I loved Voyant. I loved the pretty colors. I liked the graphical outputs. But for me, being a simple guy, putting myself in as a test client took me quite a while to do it. So I thought, well, it's taken me too long to get me in, and I know me. So if you think about doing a fact find and knowing your client, you know yourself better than anybody. And I thought, if it takes me that long to get me in, it's going to take me even longer to get a client in. So another alternative I looked at was MoneyScope, and I really loved the simplicity of MoneyScope. Really simple to get the information in, but then I probably wanted a little bit more of the outputs. So it was quite simple. I just needed MoneyScope inputs and and Voyant outputs. And there was nobody else on the market, so I just decided to build it for myself. I had no plans to launch it to anybody. I just thought, let's build it and let's do it ourselves, which is happening in other parts of the financial services at the moment, where our financial advisors are saying, I'm not happy with some tech and I'm building it myself, which is great. Yeah. So I started to build it myself by employing a young lad in South Wales called Tom Newton, and I gave him the nickname of Isaac because he was a mathematician from Bath. But Isaac was just brilliant at tech, and he came in, and I would just blabber on to him what I wanted, and he would then turn it into some great outputs. And several months in, I was chatting to Matt Wiltshire, who still works with me now. He's been with me for 12 years, and Matt's now a chartered financial planner as well. And Matt and I got our heads together and said, look, this is too good for us just to use it for ourselves. We need to make this available to the whole country. And then suddenly you think, wow, hang on, I built this great software. You want to give it to our competitors? Because technically, if you're a financial advisor, everybody is a competitor. But actually, they used to be competitors 25 years ago when we were all looking for clients, whereas now there's more clients than we can really take on, and then it's about becoming efficient. So I said, look, let's not view everybody as competitors, just view them as peers, and let's make the software available. And that's how CashCalc was born. And then when people started using us and giving us feedback, I'd listen to it and think, actually, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Because you do think you think you're great at what you do, and you know how to do it, but it's not until you then put software out to other financial advisors who may look at things in a different way or approach something differently, that they come up with new ideas. And I think actually that's a great idea. And we've tried to take on board those ideas and got CashCalc where it is today. And then just to bring you fully up to date, in May of this year, I decided to take CashCalc to the next level. I probably needed to partner up with somebody, and FE Fund Info acquired us because, you know, they've been there, done it, got the t-shirt with regard to tech. I had 8 developers, they had 140. And I thought, well, these guys are going to help me get to the next stage. And it's good. It's all going well.
Brilliant. What a story. Absolutely fantastic. And yeah, there's a few things to pick up on there. Firstly, there's the idea that lots of financial planners are doing this at the moment because the tech isn't available to them out there. Absolutely. We're seeing loads of that at the moment, which is great, but it's also a sign of perhaps a bit of laggardness. I don't know if that's a word, from people, from the providers in our industry who are taking a little bit too long to give financial planners the solutions, and therefore they're going out there to build them themselves. And the second thing is the simplicity. So, as you said, one of the reasons you started CashCalc was to keep it very, very simple for clients. And I think that's remained in a lot of the stuff that you guys continue to do at CashCalc. The simplicity is a big kind of, it's almost like a red line. It's like a line in the sand for you. You cannot cross that, because if you do, then it becomes too complex. And I think we spoke about this, didn't we, a few weeks ago, that then you start needing training for these kind of things, and it just becomes too messy and too complicated. But I want to hear it from you. How important do you consider simplicity when you're designing things and you're designing products for people to use going forward?
It's absolutely key. And you can apply it not just to tech, you can apply it to the product. You know, as financial advisors, me and people watching this, we get approached by providers, and I use that in terms of big providers, you know, your big multinational insurance companies, and maybe small bespoke companies who say, oh, I've got this new product. And I used to have lots of these BDMs come to see me and say, oh, we've got this new product. And if I couldn't understand it, then I can't advise on it. You really can't, unless you can explain it to me simply in 1 or 2 sentences. Then the product is too complicated, and if it's too complicated, it's not right for any of my clients. That's my view. Well, the same then applies to your technology and also your communications with the client. You know, we shouldn't be sending clients 10, 20, 30-page letters. We should be sending them a snapshot in 1 page. Bang, 1-page financial plan. That's not to say you can't have a little bit more detail for some clients who want to go into it, but you've got to be able to look at it and grab it and understand it straight away. So with tech, why have smartphones become so essential in everyday life around the world? That's because they're simple to use. Okay, you know, a telephone's fairly simple. It's got a keypad. You just dial it, put it in your ear, and you start talking. But smartphones do so much more than that now, but you pretty much don't need to read the manual. You don't need to go on courses. Certainly don't need to go on a 3-day residential course. And people very rarely would ring the helpline, because you just look at it. The software is being written very simply. And that's got to be the standard we work to for financial services tech. And as soon as somebody say to me, oh, I love this tech, it's fantastic, their customer service is brilliant, my brain says, why do you need to ring the customer service? To me, great customer service is actually you never needing to ring us. Yeah. You know, even now at CashCalc with thousands of users, and we have about 2,000 IFAs log on every day. We get about 40 to 45 calls a day. So it's an incredibly small amount. And the average call time is 3 minutes, 52 seconds. So we only actually talk to people for about 160 minutes a day. Okay. Yeah. Not that I know my stats straight off the top of my head, mind. Okay.
Not that you did any homework before this call. Yeah.
No, I haven't. I just know that because, you know, that's one of my main indicators. You know, we don't have an FAQ page, frequently asked questions, because my view is they've frequently asked you that question, change the tech, but they don't need to ask the question. It's fairly obvious if you think about it.
Yeah, definitely. Okay?
So you've got to make the software simple to use. And actually, that's held me back in some respects, because, you know, we've just launched, and literally very, very recently, the gross tax version of CashCalc. And I've resisted doing it because I've said, you don't need to. It's a forecast. what I didn't want to do as well was to actually just build another Voyant, okay? Because I've mentioned Voyant and I like it, but if that's already available in the market as a complex, detailed, but actually quite time-consuming to use, what's the point in building another one? You have to give our users choice. Now, what I'm delighted we've been able to do, and Tom Isaac Newton still works with us, and he leads our dev team. I think we've actually built that comprehensive, complex tool, but actually we've maintained the simplicity to use. But it took us a few years to get there. So I will only now add functionality if it does not add complexity.
Brilliant. I think that's why a lot of people love CashCalc as well, as the simplicity of it. And speaking as a previous user of it, that is one of the things that was really good about it. The fact that you didn't need a training course, and you could pretty much, I picked it up from day one. I mean, that's pretty how simple it is. On day one of being a financial training to become a financial planner, I was pretty much learning how to use CashCalc and didn't really need any to learn how to use it. It was so intuitive to do it. And if we stick on cash flow modeling for a little bit, I don't think there's anyone listening who potentially doesn't use cash flow modeling with their clients. I think the majority of people do now use some kind of cash flow modeling with their clients. But if there is anyone out there who still isn't using cash flow modeling with their clients, what would you say the biggest benefits are of using like a cash flow tool like CashCalc? Not just CashCalc, but any cash flow tool. What would you say the biggest benefits are?
Well, to me, the simple thing, first of all, you engage the client, because the client's now looking at some colors and graphs, and if you show them a tabulated output saying you're going to have 100 grand, 200 grand, or 500 grand, the client can't necessarily relate to that being an income which is sufficient for them to live on. Okay, but that's what an illustration says. Even if the illustration then says, "Oh, and that'll give you an income of X," what does that mean? You have to relate it to. Whoops, daisies.
Ray's got an alarm, everyone.
Yeah, but it's at a certain time every day I have to do something. So
okay.
From a personal point of view, so,
that's all good.
But I did it just before this call, so I forgot to cancel my alarm. That doesn't necessarily relate into whether that income is sufficient. So as soon as you then put a cash flow in front of the client and say, well, look, your spending is projected to be this, because in reality, most people, if they spend £2,000 a month on their everyday life, and on top of that they spend 800 quid on a mortgage, it would be fair to assume that when they clear their mortgage, they're probably still going to spend £2,000 a month, because people don't suddenly change when they get to retirement. They might want to do certain things a bit more or a bit less, but if somebody's spending £2,000 a month, it's fair to assume it's going to carry on.
Yeah.
So, and when you chat to the client about that, you can get an idea of what they're likely to be their spending needs, and then you can start saying, well, we know you're going to get your state pension. You know your partner's going to get a state pension. Bang, bang. And then you say, well, you worked in local government for X number of years, so we can factor in that. So you can start building in their guaranteed incomes. Okay. And the client can visually see it. And I know with CashCalc and a couple of others, you can actually start with a blank page if you want to start pressing buttons on it and say, well, there's your expenditure line. Okay. And in fact, the gross cash flow we've now done, there's 3 expenditure lines. We've got what I call the heat and eat, the essential expenditure. And then you've got their lifestyle, which is, my normal holidays and my normal living of life. And then you've got your discretionary expenditure. So you could say, well, look, there's your expenditure line there. Let's start building your income. You used to press the green button, which brings in their first income, and the red button, which brings in their next income. So visually, you can start engaging the client on where their money's coming from, when it's coming in. State pension may be coming in at 66, 67, or in your case, probably 68, because you're younger than me. And the client can visually see it. And then what would have been in the illustration, the 200 grand, who was going to give them X number of income, that then is overlaid onto their cash flow, and the client can say, I can see how my pension or my investment fits in with my spending needs in retirement. So you've engaged the client and brought their future to life in front of them.
Yeah.
And what that helps them do then is makes them It sounds dramatic, but you can help them make life-changing decisions.
Yeah.
Life-changing decision could be, I'm retiring now or next year, or actually, I didn't realize I had that much money. I'm going to give my kids 30 grand to get them on the house and that and now, because I know I'm never going to need that chunk of my money. And to me, that's life-changing decisions. And you think, well, actually, it's a fairly cool job we do. We're financial planners or financial advisors, which in an elevator sounds fairly boring. Okay. But I like to say, well, people give me pieces of paper, pensions, investments, and I help them make life-changing decisions.
Yeah. I mean, what you've just explained there is literally helping people see their future, not just see it in their heads, but see it on like actually in front of their eyes. They can see it. They can almost touch it, their future. Which, who else allows people to do that? Who else allows people to see their futures?
Honestly, this is a cool job we do. I really, really love it. It's a really great job. And yeah, we can do that. So cash flow planning helps to do that. And it doesn't have to be CashCalc. Honestly, I'm not sitting here banging the drum saying you've got to use this. There's some great tools out there. I've mentioned a couple of them already. To me, I'm definitely not in the cult camp where you say, oh, you've got to do it this way. And if you don't do it this way, you're a rubbish financial advisor. I don't say any of that. If you want to charge fixed fees, that's cool. If you want to do ad valorem, whatever's right for you. If you want to run seminars, we've all got to find our own little niche and do it our way. And I think then it's incumbent on the software providers to actually just give the tools to enable people to use, which is really interesting. I want to go back to something you said about waiting for providers to produce these tools. Why wait for providers? Providers have dictated financial services for many years by having the products and then the commission to go with the products, and one would pay more commission than the other and say, well, hope financial advisors will sell my products more commission. We did away with all of that many years ago now. So to me, the providers are there to provide certain products which may or may not be necessary for the clients. So we somehow need either completely new faces to come to the fore to produce the software, or what is beginning to happen now is financial advisors like me, and there's the Ellen boys, and there's the Plan Happy guys, and there's the Code Potato guys. They're now producing software and saying, well, look, I've got none of this legacy rubbish. I just think this would help do the job.
Yeah.
And we need more of them to happen. And in fact, when I first launched CashCalc, or I think a year or two afterwards, I actually put onto our website how you can claim R&D credits so to reduce the financial risk of trying it yourself.
Yeah.
Because as a financial advisor, if you've got an idea and you're already running a profitable business, you could actually potentially get R&D credits for having a crack at it anyway, which almost reduces the financial risk in half.
Amazing. Yeah, there's a lot of that untapped potential out there in terms of funding and that kind of stuff out there. Definitely is. Okay, so one of the biggest tips that I have for people when using a cash flow tool, and I hope this isn't the same as yours, because I'm about to ask you for your best tip as well. But I think one of the most useful things that we ever did when we were using CashCalc was to actually build financial plans with clients live. So, use CashCalc in front of their eyes, not just prepare it as a report and then show them. It's actually using it with them and changing things around, moving stuff around. That was so useful for clients. But I want to hear it from you, from the man who actually helped create it. What would your number one tip be for using not only CashCalc, but other cash flow modeling tools as well? What would your number one best tip for financial planners be?
Okay, well, I'm going to be boring now because I'm going to repeat something I've already said, and that's keep it simple. You have to keep it simple. Don't lose the client in any way, shape, or form. I love your idea of doing it live, and I do that anyway. So maybe I've not classed that as a tip, and it's just something that I routinely do. But when we've helped clients make those life-changing decisions, like giving kids the money or whatever, I've never had a client come to me and say, "Oh, brilliant, thanks for that, Ray. But next time, can you make the report more detailed?"
Yeah.
I'd really like to know what tax I'm paying in 2028. Okay. I've never had a client say it to me. Okay, even clients who are millionaires, multimillionaires, and exited their business, quite often we just sit there and say, look, you've got 10 million, we can set 2 million aside for that, 1 million aside for this, 3 million for that, and we can do that there. So you don't even need to get more accurate than that as the initial discussion plan.
Yeah.
So definitely keep it simple. And I'm very happy to steal a bit of your idea and say, do it live in front of the client, because that's something we definitely do. In fact, as a little tip, occasionally at Niche, we get put on beauty parade. So that means, a client is ringing around 3 financial advisors, and we routinely give them a taste of financial planning, even in the introductory meeting. Okay. We'll quite often build it from scratch. And the clients want to be more accurate. We say, oh, just give me a rough idea of your income. And we just, or your expenditure. We might put, $3,000. And the client will say, oh, I can tell you now. I say, no, we don't know exact. This is just to give you a flavor of what we do. And then very simply in front of the potential client, we'll show an expenditure and a couple of different incomes coming in. And then they might have already told us they've got £800,000 to invest, and we'll bang that in, and straight away on screen you have a very rough cash flow in front of them of 800 grand. Their fixed income, state pensions, bang, bang, bang. And then the clients, they want to give you more information to make it more accurate. Okay. And that's the case of no, today's just an introductory meeting to show you some of the things we can do for you. Okay. So then we start finding out more about the client. And
definitely
9 times out of the 10, the client will use us after the beauty parade.
That's a huge bit of area of another untapped potential. I think from financial planners is because it doesn't take. How long does that take you, Ray? What, 20 minutes? Not even that.
No, minutes. It takes you minutes. If you can be sat in front of the client, just in your general conversation with the client might say, "Oh, I've got 800,000 to invest." They've already told you their rough age. You don't even need their exact age at this stage. You can just do add state pension, add this. They're all 30 seconds things to do it. Okay. Yeah. And if you've got the confidence just to do it in front of the client, you can give the client a taste of that in 5, 6, 7 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. Because you don't want to make it too detailed at this stage. You just want to give them a flavor of what you can do if you work together with the client. And invariable, what we'll do with that particular client, the client will email us and say, I've decided to go ahead with you. We then reply to them and say, here's your unique link. Go in and give us the information now. And then they do the fact find ahead of the advice meetings.
Amazing. Yeah. It is, such a creative thing, but such a simple thing as well. It's almost like it's completely making a product out of what financial planners do, which is what we should be doing as well, which is cool. Really good tip. Okay, so sticking with, I love saying this, sticking with tech for a sec. You guys at CashCalc are at the moment spending a lot of time working on your new client portal service as well. Actually, I say new, it's been out for a little while now. But you can continuously developing it and things like that. And I've actually seen some people using this as well. It looks fantastic, looks really, really good. But what do you think the future actually does hold for these kind of client portals, and where do you think this came from, this need for these client portals?
Okay, so the client portal is going to become more important. So if I'd spoken to financial advisors 2 years ago, and I did speak to them, and people I'd know and bump into and say, what do you want me to build at CashCalc? Nobody said, oh, could you build me a portal? Okay, nobody at all. Right? They're all saying, oh, can you add lifetime allowance? Can you add this? So they're all just augmenting or making better the current product. Okay, and and going back to a lovely analogy I do, which is Henry Ford when he invented the car. He famously said, if I asked the public what they want, they'd say faster horses. Okay. Yeah. And that's not being derogatory, because people look at what they've got and they just try and make it better. And sometimes you need to rewrite it and just do it completely differently. Okay. So, I was looking at this a few years ago and thinking, well, what do I need to develop on CashCalc to make it super? And what I decided to do, we needed to engage the client more, and we need to get the client to do more information. What is a really time-consuming thing? Well, the time-consuming thing is a fact find, but I love the fact find. I love talking to clients about their goals and aspirations. But what I don't like doing then is writing it all down on a piece of paper and 20 pages, flicking back and forth. But I love doing the chatting. So my thoughts were, actually get the client to do that bit. And then we can just talk about what they want, because they've already looked at their situation, their pension and or maybe their mortgage, etc. I've looked at it ahead of the meeting, and now actually the conversation is more productive, because instead of me trying to delve, have you got any pensions? How many have you got? What are they worth? Okay, this and financial advisors listening to this will say, "Oh, I get that. That's exactly what happens." And how often does the client say, "Oh, I'm not sure. Let me pick up my Tesco bag full of pensions."
Yeah.
And so actually, the meeting becomes much longer because the client is just delving through pages and pages of paperwork. Okay, that's not good use of their time or your time. Okay, and that was the norm. So we've got to eliminate all of these inefficiencies. So I then thought, well, I've been using eBay for 15 years, and I've been using PayPal and EasyJet and Ryanair and British Airways. They've all got portals.
Yeah.
And eBay is the great example, really. You log on to eBay, you might buy something, and you're in the portal, username, password, my account, all the rest of it. And then when you want to pay for it with PayPal, owned by eBay, mind you, there's a separate portal, separate username, separate login. So our customers and clients out there are routinely using portals all the time in their everyday life. So the transition to use portals in financial services is not as big a leap as people think. Now, what we've got to do is we've got to be able to use different portals with different providers. And this is one of the questions I'm having with back offices now, which is the dominant portal? Who cares which is the dominant portal? Let's just, if they want to use the back office portal all the time and introduce CashCalc, we need to somehow insert into their portal, the back office portal, a little button saying, log me on to CashCalc, okay? Or vice versa, when they're on the CashCalc portal, but they want to then, let's say, give the client access to a valuation, which is via their PFP on IO, we need a little button saying, send us the client. So we need single sign-on internally. But that's for me and the other software providers to get our heads together and talk to each other about. So we need to just have portals where you can log on for valuations, but we need to link them so it's nice and easy. So going back to my example of eBay and PayPal, it's a simple link. As soon as I'm in eBay and says pay, okay, it links me straight across to the portal to log into PayPal to do it. Yeah. Okay, and we've got to then. So, for example, if we're in CashCalc and the advisor uses X plan, we need to be able to just press one button and link across to do it, and send across the username and the encrypted password and log straight in. And then all it does then is on your tablet or on your laptop or desktop, you've just got two different tabs, which in the olden days used to call windows, two different windows, which I think that's where Windows came from. So you can just tab between, CashCalc or Xplan or Time for Advice or IO or whatever it is.
Yeah. How far off do you think we are from that kind of thing? We're saying we need to do that, but how close are we to that?
I know we're having those conversations now. I'm talking to providers now about doing that. Okay. Yeah. So one of the things that I haven't really announced to the market yet, so this is probably going to be a little bit of information ahead of the game. My marketing team will probably, marketing people are going like this now.
Well, this won't be released until 2022 anyways, so I think we'll be okay. Oh, another alarm.
Yes. I've got it on silenced as well, but the alarm is going to be done.
That's probably an alarm from your marketing team saying, don't tell anyone about this new thing that we're launching. And for anyone who's not watching, Ray's just thrown his phone away because I think he's sick of all the alarms. So.
I'm talking to several providers anyway, but at platform level, okay? Because I want the advice journey just to flow and at some point go through CashCalc. Okay, so to me, if the client is putting the data into CashCalc at the start, we're just at the start of the advice journey. Okay, now ordinarily, if you think about it, CashCalc, its flagship tool is the cash flow planning tool. Okay, but that's not the start of the journey; it's not the end. That's in the middle. That's the back office bit putting together, and then the presentation to the client. But because I'm a financial advisor, and I've already said to you earlier today, some of the inefficiencies are talking to the client on a fact find and write it all down. I wanted to do with those inefficiencies. So actually, it brought CashCalc at the start of the journey as well. So if we've got the client data coming in, what we've then got to be doing, because that's great for CashCalc, but I need to help with the other bits of the journey as well, which are going to be your attitude to risk. So I'm talking to several ATR providers at the moment and saying, look, can we press one button in CashCalc? So if there's a button saying, who's your attitude to risk questionnaire, you press one button and it pops up saying, Phenometrica, Oxford Risk, Dynamic Planner, and then they just pick which one they use. Okay. And then once they picked it, it remembers it. So the next time we say, there's Ray, he always uses Oxford Risk, for example. But the first time you've got a pick list. But when we first pick it, it says, okay, use your username and password to log on. And then we have what's called SSO, single sign-on.
Yeah.
Okay. So we encrypt the password. And as soon as we're there, then it just sends the username across to, in that case, Oxford Risk, logs it on, and now you've got another Windows open. Okay, so you can flick between the two. And I just, I'm in South Wales, and occasionally I do drive to London, and on the journey I might have to go to the services, for a convenient break or to fill up with fuel. So I've got to do some stops on the way. Okay. So all I'm trying to do is, I know financial advisors on their client journey have got to have some stops on the way. Okay. Yeah. So sticking with my stupid analogies, which I love. Okay. If I know you've got to stop on the way, and I can do a deal with Membry Services and say, look, whenever our guys stop here, will you give them a free pasty when they're filling up with fuel and wash their windscreen for them? Yeah. And then they'll stop with you instead of Leeds, Delamere or Reading. Membry might say, yeah, I'll do that. So that's what I'm trying to do, and say, well, look, I know on the journey they've got to go to the ATR. So what can we do to help these guys? Yeah. And one of the things might not be a discount or might not be things, but it could add efficiencies. And we say, well, look, why don't we work together? So we pre-populate you pre-populate us. Okay. So you still get a license fee off the advisor. I still get a license fee off the advisor, but we've added some efficiencies to their journey. Yeah. Okay. So that's what I'm trying to do on the whole journey. So we're doing that now at the start. And I'm also doing it at the end with platforms and saying, well, actually, if we get to the point where the client says, yeah, I'm going to do that £800,000 investment with you. Okay. We've got to then put that with a provider somewhere. And then I'm talking to providers now on platforms to say, well, press one button and we send the name, address, date of birth, national insurance number straight from CashCalc, which the client typed in, straight to the provider then. And then instead of you then having to end your meeting with the client and say, all right, yeah, we're going to go and stick this on Transact or Aviva and having to type it in, we've already got you to page 4 of Aviva because we've sent the data across to them. Yeah. Okay. And then what the great thing then is, and financial advisors and paraplanners watching this will know that that's all great at the new client setup stage. But when you do the annual review with the client, there's loads of work then. Now, if I've got a link with some of those platforms, we can then say to the platforms, yeah, send us back the full transactional history as well. Because then we can start working out all the MiFID II charges. So suddenly, the 4 or 5 hours we spend doing boring paperwork to do a client annual review, we might get in 4 or 5 minutes.
God.
Yeah. So this is the way my brain's thinking.
No, I think it's the way that everyone's brain thinks. I just think that they just don't know how to do it, or they're not. I think they want it. They just don't know where it's going to come from, and it's so refreshing to hear someone actually say that it's happening, which is good.
Yeah. Well, I'm now in a very, very prestigious and lucky position. So I still think like a financial advisor. I'm still a financial advisor. I've still got an IFA firm I'm the chairman of. So I still have the same challenges as they've got. But because we then were lucky enough to develop CashCalc and become the market leaders, then some of the other software providers and platforms actually listen to me.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's what I mean by the prestigious and lucky position I'm in. I'm now in a position where I can actually say, hey guys, we've got thousands of users. If we do this and you do this, then we both keep our clients happy. And just like I said on the pasties and washing your things, you're washing your screen stage. If I can collaborate with Oxford Risk or a Dynamic Planner or somebody like that, and and we do integrations, well, we're both getting license fees, so we're happy. Okay. Yeah. The user's happy. And that could be the same with providers. If the provider wants to collaborate with us, they're thinking, well, actually, they might give us some more business because we've helped with the journey. Mm-hmm. And now that becomes a real powerful position we're in. And it goes back to something we said at the start. We're waiting for providers to do things. Okay. Now providers have to do things if they want our business.
Yeah. Switch, complete power switch, isn't it? Yeah.
Absolutely. Financial advisors are the distributors of the products. Okay.
They should be the ones in power. Yeah.
We're the kingmakers, okay? Because we're the ones talking to the clients, okay? Because the reality is clients will invest their money where we recommend it, okay? It's very rarely you have to have a client come to you and say, all right, I want to take some advice to you and I want to use Aviva or I want to use Prudential. They just don't say it, okay? But if you then give some advice and as a part of it, say, I recommend this, this, and this, or by the way, I recommend this provider, quite often they say, oh yeah, I like that provider. They did my first house insurance 20 years ago or something. I like them, okay? But in general, clients will go with the advice we give them of which provider is best for their circumstances. So we are the kingmakers, so we can turn this around and get the providers to give us what we need to make our advice journey easier and more efficient.
Yeah, it's a perfect kind of lead into us. I like saying this word on the podcast. Segue into the next question I was going to ask you, which is about what we've spoke about a few times actually in this podcast alone is these frustrations amongst advisors and planners not having it there and therefore deciding to build it themselves. So for instance, back office systems, your example of cash flow modeling tool, CRM systems, all that kind of stuff. But why, I mean, you might have just answered this, but I'm interested to hear what you think. Why do you think that our profession or our industry, whatever you want to call it, is still lagging in this technology space? Like why do you think that it has been lagging for so long?
Okay, this is a guess by me because I don't know for definite, but it could well be that the market's too small. Okay, and what I mean by that, there's 30,000 advisors in the country. So if you say everybody's got a power planner, that's 60,000 licenses. And even if you say, well, actually you may have some administrators as well, and there could be a potentially 80,000 licenses. Actually, that's quite small.
Yeah.
Okay. For the big players to come this, your Apples and your Googles, and your Microsofts come into the fore. Actually, there's not a big enough market, really. Okay. Oh my goodness me! I don't know how to stop this. This is if only I knew how to work technology, eh?
Okay. Oh, that's perfect. That's absolutely brilliant.
Okay, so I'll hide it now. I've sat on it. Okay. Okay.
Then it'll just be a deeper ring, won't it?
Yeah. So to continue, it may well be that the market's too small. Okay, for the really big players to do it. Okay, so then you've got, well, why aren't the providers doing it? Well, if you're sat in some legacy products on there with a bit of opaque pricing, are they going to rush to actually to make it super efficient to lose business? Highly unlikely. That's a bit cynical of me, but it's highly unlikely to happen. Yeah. But what it does mean is that because it's a fairly small market, that little old me, an IFA in South Wales, can actually develop a product, hit the market, make it, a commercial success, and actually then that gives me a tremendous amount of personal pleasure that I'm able to do that. I said to you earlier, I love being a financial advisor and helping clients make life-changing decisions. I tell you, it feels fairly cool to sit here and say we've developed a product which thousands of advisors use every day, and tens of thousands of clients make life-changing decisions using it. So if I could do it, honestly, there's loads of guys can do it. I talk to G quite regularly at Ellen Software, I was going to pronounce his full name, but he's even more Welsh than I am.
Yeah, no chance of doing that.
Okay. And they're trying to do it. I was speaking to Gareth at Code Potato recently as well, and saying how we could assist there, with integrations. And it's great to see them doing it. Anthony Villis at First Wealth, I spoke to Anthony just a few months ago because Anthony was looking at doing something as well. And my view is, if we can all swap ideas and help, even if swapping an idea puts somebody off and says, actually, that's not for me, they can then focus on something else which is for them. So, to me, the more that come to the market, the better. I think competition breeds innovation. Okay, so I absolutely have no problem at all with somebody coming and competing head on with us, okay, because it forces us to innovate. I get a bit annoyed when people rip us off, and it's happened once or twice where, one provider did produce something and I looked at it and I got my marketing team just to cut off the logos, and I couldn't tell which was mine and which was theirs. And I'm like, come on, guys, that's not innovating. That's just being lazy, really. So as long as people are genuinely innovating and trying to do things, I'll give them all the support I can, really, and help them.
Brilliant. It's a ripe area for disruption, and it's also it's easy area for disruption as well, because it is. I mean, this sounds very cynical as well, but it is so bad with some of the stuff that we see from in our profession. I mean, some of the stuff that is out there is pretty bad. I think you agree with that.
I think we're hard on ourselves. There's lots of areas can be better, but let me tell you, the law is much worse. Okay, if you've ever moved house and needed a solicitor, my goodness, it's archaic. Okay, so they're monstrous behind. I've not spoken to many solicitors who can actually send an email. That email comes from their secretary, and I'm thinking, come on, guys, you really need to drag yourself into the 21st century. So we're actually not as bad as we sometimes paint ourselves to be. But there's lots of areas we can improve. And even now, we're rekeying. We shouldn't be rekeying. My view is that open banking is going to be big. Okay, and I'm saying that, and we're not using open bank in a great deal. I've built it, but the quality of data we're getting in from the open banking provider is still not as good as it can be. Okay, now to help on the journey, you have to take away inefficiencies. So if, for example, we integrate with open banking, and then they put Sky on their inners food, they've not helped, because somebody's got to look at it and say, that's in the wrong place. It's not food. That's entertainment or personal expenditure. Okay, so actually, if we get the categorization wrong, it's not helping. It's actually making it worse. But once we can get that sorted, once we can get that sorted, and it really, really improves efficiency, we'll then look back and say, what, you used to type, you used to write people's expenditure down on a piece of paper, or you used to get the clients to do. Now it'll be straight electronically. It'll line it all up, and then it'll start to identify things. And I'm not a huge lover of saying AI, because people start thinking, second guessing, but we do a little bit of AI in CashCalc now. And let me give you an example. So on the fact find that we do, okay, it's a dynamic fact find. So if I don't expect the client to ever type their address, that's just madness. There's so many postcode lookups now. You can do a postcode lookup and then and pre-complete the address, and it's going to be from 15 addresses, whatever. Now, the moment the client selects 123 High Street, okay, I've done an instantaneous API with Land Registry, assuming they've done a drop down to say they own it, to find out when they bought that property and how much they bought it for. Because if they've said they've owned it, page 5 of the fact finder says what assets you've got. So if you're doing the paper-based, you've got to make them write their address there, and then you've got to make them write their assets. It's the same thing. It's mad. Okay. Yeah. So what I try and do in CashCalc is to say, well, we'll fill that in ready. But we've also done another API with a Zoopla-like saying, well, what's the current value of it? Because on the assets now, before they even get to that page, they've got when they bought the asset, how much they bought it for, and the approximate value of it now. So now when the client gets to page 5, they're like, this is good.
Yeah.
We've lived here since 2012. Okay. Now, we've also, if they've said they've got a mortgage, started filling in page 6, which is the liabilities. And if you've got open banking and they've brought in 800 a month from Halifax as a direct debit, it's fair to assume that was probably the mortgage payment. So we can pre-fill that in ready. Okay. Yeah. So these are efficiencies where I said we do a little bit of AI. If when the client then gets to the protection page, okay, this is prior to open banking, because open banking might have picked up a payment for protection. Okay. Mm-hmm. But if the client has said, well, I haven't got any protection, okay, it'll just pop up and say, hang about, you said you've got kids and you've said you've got a mortgage. Are you sure you've got no protection? Okay. Now, this is a little bit of our AI because we're responding to what the client is saying. And if the client says, no, I haven't, it'll pop up and say, well, do you want your advisor to discuss this with you? Okay. Yeah. Now, why did I do that? It's because I'm an old-fashioned financial advisor and I believe in protecting the family, protecting your earnings, and you do the basics before you do pensions, investments, and savings. Okay. Yeah. Now, looking at my stats last month, we have about 2,500 fact finds done every month where the client does it electronically all by themselves. And we have about 3,000 objectives created every month. So about 1.2, 1.3 objectives per client, in addition to what they thought they were going to be talking to the advisor about.
Wow, bloody hell.
Yeah. So last year, there's about 36,000 objectives were created where people said, oh, I want to talk to you about life cover, critical illness, doing a will for me, doing a will for my partner, power of attorney or power of attorney. So it's just those areas at the moment we're nudging the client, which is a little bit of AI. But if you think about going on beyond that with open banking, it could be popping up and saying, you're paying big money to this insurer. Okay. Can you just clarify how much your cover is? And you can start offering alternatives. So that's the way I see technology going to add efficiencies and more personalization.
Amazing. Yeah, that would be really good. Open banking gets talked about a lot, and I thought it was going to be bigger than it actually was a few years ago. But like you said, the feed from the data feed from some of the providers isn't the best yet. But once it does come, that'll be huge. Yeah.
It's still in its infancy. Okay. Yeah. So, Plaid, I think, was recently bought by Visa, or they're going to buy for about 6 billion quid. So, they can see this is going to be fairly big. So what will happen, you'll find that they'll all start coming to market. It's a bit like the challenger banks. They've been talking about the challenger banks for ages and ages. And actually, a lot of the people watching this now probably use some of the challengers and saying, well, they're brilliant. I use Revolut and instantaneous. I paid for something at a restaurant the other day, and as I paid, my phone pinged to say that I paid before the transaction had gone through on the card machine. And the waitress was like, "What's that?" I said, "It's just confirming I've just spent some money with my Revolut card." That's really, really good service. And you think, well, why do you want to know that? Well, I want to know if my card's been stolen.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, it might not be so important when I'm there paying, but it's nice to have the reassurance that if something goes wrong, I'm getting instantaneous replies like that.
Definitely. Yeah. Okay. So let's move away from tech for now. Well, actually, that's all we'll talk about for tech today. So anyone who's a tech fan, you can switch off now because we're going to talk about Ray's financial planning business. So, of course, you do run a financial planning. How old is Niche now, by the way, Ray? Just quickly.
17. So 17 years old. So I started in 2005.
Wow. Amazing. And so obviously it's established now and you've been growing it whilst being growing CashCalc as well. If there is anyone in the audience who is listening along and who is also at the stage of growing their financial planning business at the moment, do you have any tips for those guys on what are lessons that you've learned over those years in growing your financial planning business that you can give them?
Good question. Okay. Well, the reason I called it Niche, is because when I started, I thought I need to probably stick to what I know and what I like, and actually your specialism. Okay. Yeah. So create your own niche, really, which you like or enjoy working in, and off subject completely. My son wanted to go to university and do law, and he didn't know whether to do straight law or law in German or law in French. And he was making these decisions. And I just said to him one day, I said, "Who's the prime minister?" And he told me, and I said, who's the chancellor? And he told me, and I said, who's the foreign secretary? He told me, and he actually could pretty much name the whole cabinet. He said, well, why you asked me that for that? I said, because I'm reminding you that you're quite interested in politics. It's just a general interest of yours. So why don't you do law and politics? So he looked at there was law and politics, which not many people applied for. And he got straight in on an unconditional offer to do law and politics. So the reason I give that is that he then enjoyed his university because it was doing law, which he wanted to go into, but it also then covered a subject which he was just genuinely quite interested in.
Yeah.
So if there's people listening here today who are really, really interested in investments and they like all the ins and outs, well, specialize in that area. But if you've got somebody who likes all of the ins and outs of running your own business and how you grow a business and raise money, well, specialize in entrepreneurs and startups and scale in that, or successful entrepreneurs. You know, for me, it sounds really, really geeky, but I was actually just a pension geek. Okay. You know, I passed G60. For any of you listening, that's an old advanced pension paper, which is similar to AF3. I passed it in the late 90s, and I was just a geek. I just enjoyed pensions. I've since passed J04, J05, R08, and I've done AF3 as well. So it's like I passed my driving test in the 90s, and I took it again just to show I could still do it. Okay. So I just liked pensions. So I called Niche the name Niche because I thought I'll be a pension specialist and I'll just do all complex pensions. And over the years we've done pensions for people who've bought tranches of land and loads of commercial properties, and developed things in their pension. And I actually quite enjoy turning pieces of paper into a tangible asset, So I would say find your niche and then just become super good at it. And that could be something as simple as, at the moment in this country, there are thousands and thousands of doctors who've got a problem with tapered annual allowance, with overfunding, and nobody understands it. Nobody understands it. They don't understand it. And lots of people don't. So you could almost create your niche and say, well, actually, I'm really interested in that. And you become a specialist in the NHS pension for high earners or whatever it is. Okay. And you could create your own little niche. So just watch the telly or Twitter and say, they keep going on about this. I'm interested in it.
I actually know someone who is an NHS pension specialist, and she is literally overrun all the time with business because there's just so many people out there who don't have a clue what's going on. So your point has definitely been made there. I definitely agree with you on that one. Okay, so let's start closing things off. Very, very quick answer to this one, if you can, Ray. We ask everyone this question because it's very cool to hear what people say. But what are you most excited to see in, this is a bit of a stupid question for you because I know what you're going to say, but what are you most excited to see happen in financial services in the next, let's say 10 years, a decade? What's most excited for you?
Okay, so the development of tech to improve efficiencies. Okay, so I started being a financial advisor in 1996. And at that time, when I worked for an insurance company, the challenge of being a successful financial advisor was finding clients. Okay, because at the time there were 350,000 financial advisors and collectors at the door of your £1 a week policies, but they were all financial advisors. 350,000. Okay, and there's now less than 30,000. So you can imagine every time you came across a client, you had a brother, sister, auntie, or uncle, or mate who was a financial advisor. Okay, so the challenge was finding clients. Okay, what happened then is examinations came in on the 1st of July 1997, which said CF1, 2, or 3, or you're out. And we literally went to about 150,000 overnight. Okay. Wow. But that gave an opportunity to say, well, actually, I can now differentiate, which is why I passed G60 in the late 90s, because I wanted to differentiate myself from the people left. Because financial planning certificate was the standard, and I wanted the advanced financial planning certificate, which I passed in the late 90s. Okay, so you're differentiating it. Where are we now? Finding clients is no longer the challenge. Okay, what it is finding clients that you can work with profitably through efficiencies. Okay, because you can take on clients all day and you can spend hours and hours and hours working for them, but actually, if you're not making a profit, then you're not going to stay in business. So what we've got to be able to do is we've got to be able to deal with clients efficiently. So we need tech to help onboard the client. So we only do the expensive bit in little tranches in between, get the client to do this bit. When I read on Twitter that financial advisors saying, I was on hold to Phoenix for an hour and 20 minutes. I'm thinking, why are you ringing Phoenix? Okay. That can't be good. We've got to find a more efficient way of doing that. And people might say, well, I've got to ring them. No, we need a junior member of staff to do that, which is a quarter of the price of you. Okay. So I'm excited about seeing the evolution of the tech to continue the efficiency so we can take on more clients and drive down costs.
Brilliant. Great answer. That actually isn't what I expected you to say as well, which is good. I got a bit of a shock, so that's good. Final question then for you, Ray. We spoke about this before we started recording, but we do always like to ask our guests for a book or some kind of content, podcast or bit of film. I don't know, something that has helped them in their career so far. What would you recommend that people read or watch or consume?
Okay, I don't read books. Okay, I used to read them when I was young and at the start of my career because I thought that's what everybody had to do. But I very quickly realized that you can read about how other people do it all day. You just have to do it like you want to do it. You have to be yourself. Hopefully on this podcast, I've just been myself. The reason I don't do podcasts, because I don't listen to podcasts, which you said right at the start. I just focus on me, my clients, and what's going on in the world. Like one of the tips I said earlier is watch the news. What's going on in the news? And if you watch the news or read the papers, there's consultants saying, I don't understand this. We're going to lose consultants because they're paying tax for going to work. So I'm afraid I'm going to give you an answer that I'm not pointing them to any book at all. Just be yourself, see what's going on in the world, and fix that problem.
That's good. That's refreshing, actually. I mean, it's not going to appeal to the people who listen to this podcast only for the book recommendation at the end. I'll give you one. So I've just finished reading Bill Bryson's The Body. If you get a chance to read that one, that's nothing to do with finance or business or anything. It's just a fantastic book. So if you get a chance. I
listen to Audible. I've got a subscription to Audible I've had for years, and I've got all my badges in Audible, but they're just not business. They're just not business books. Okay, they're other things, and I've read a couple of Bill Bryson's as well.
Good stuff. Yeah. So that's all we've got time for today, Ray. But thank you so much for joining me. What we'd like to do on these shows is give the last word to the guest as a thank you for coming on the show. So, can you tell our audience where to find you, how to connect with you if they want to, and I always ask for some kind of motivation at the end or some kind of inspiration. So if you have another quote like the one about Henry Ford, go ahead with that one. But tell us where we can find you, tell us where we can connect with you, and leave us with some motivation as well.
Well, I guess they could just Google CashCalc, and if we've done our job right, you might find us. Okay, so there's the first thing. And if you want to connect with me, well, just connect with me on LinkedIn. It's amazing. I get loads of DMs on LinkedIn with people saying, "Oh, Ray, I love CashCalc. Can you do this?" So you've almost got, I don't know, say a direct line to the boss. Okay, I probably shouldn't have said that, but no, that's fine. If you want to connect with me, that's great. And because if people connect to me and give me great ideas, then fantastic, I'll do that. No, I've not got any great quotes other than like a Nike advert, and just do it.
Amazing. Perfect. Brilliant way to finish. And we couldn't have expected anything less or anything more from Mr. Ray Adams. So that was Ray Adams from CashCalc on the Next Gen Planners podcast. So if you enjoyed this podcast, you can find it on Apple, Spotify, and also on our website, nextgenplanners.co.uk, where you'll find more information about the training contract, the Blast Off program, and brand new product advice stack. Our conference, which is coming up in 2022, which Ray might be there at, and also our amazing community full of financial service heroes from all around the world. That's nextgenplanners.co.uk. And you can find us also on social media on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and on Instagram as well. If you like this podcast, please do give us a rate and also subscribe when you get the chance as well. But thank you so much to Ray for joining me. Thank you guys at home for listening as always. I will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.